Christian has mentioned, I am here to serve as moderator for this morning's webinar. And let's now start our open forum. So for the audience, please use the chat box to send in your questions. And let me check if we have the question already in the chat box. So, okay, as we don't have questions yet, let me pose the first question. So, this is for the three of you. Um, Everybody can answer. What is your take on museum databases being brought out to the public, or on some researchers having apprehensions on having their collections publicized through online database? So perhaps Dex can answer first.
All right. I think my take would be it's okay and for the public to have an idea what we have in our repositories, what we have in our collections. It's basically showing to the public these. For example, what I showed earlier is that we have possibly extinct species that are only found in our collection. There would be students as well that might look for possible data sets or databases that we can publish. For example, what Sir Phillip and his team did. It's already cited. It's already in a public domain. So I just hope the apprehension on sharing data is minimized to this date, because we're transitioning into a more digital based avenues. Ayun po.
Thank you, Dex. Sir Phillip, do you want to share your thoughts on this?
Yes, of course. Yeah, great insight, Dexter. On that. Well, all of the big museums all over the world have their holdings in their website, so it's readily accessible. So the Field Museum, the British Museum, lahat. I mean, it's available in their website, so people all over the world can access them. And I think it's high time for us to do the same as well. I mean, we're having information, specimen holdings that we've been keeping for the last 100 years. And sad to say, prior to this, tayo lang nakakaalam. And it's very sad. I mean, it's high time na, of course, that other people will know as well the amount of information that we have here in our campus. And of course, in a practical standpoint, legal standpoint, the UPLB MNH is housed in the UP system. And then, of course, we are a state university. So public funds are operating practically, are funding the UPLB MNH, most of it at least. So at least state funded, well, we're state funded, it comes from the public. So of course we have the, parang duty, of course, to make made available the information that we have to the public as well. So, well, taxpayers' money yan. So yes, and of course that's what the museum is all about. To be able to be as an institution, the information there is readily available to the public. Yeah.
Michelle?
Yes, I agree with Sir Phillip and Dex. It's about time to share our data to the public. But the thing is, ano ba yung gusto nating i-share? So it's not 100% that we will open our book to everyone. We still need to filter the data, the information that we want to share to the public. So pag-uusapan pa rin talaga yan ng MNH. So before we share everything.
Yeah, like pwedeng mag-add them.
Sure.
Like for other museums, like Field Museum. So nandun lahat sa website na lang, yung holdings, yung database. So, information na nakalagay doon, as far as I know, ay mga locality data, condition of the specimen, saan nakalagay, kailan nakolekta, sino nakolekta. But of course, other information associated with that ay wala. Let's say, for example, measurements, yun, mga ganun. Or mga other measurements pa lang, importante na kagad yun if you're going to do taxonomical. So, it's not all, like what Mama Michelle has said. So, not all information are divulged in the holdings pagka nasa website. But of course, the staff of any museum should always be something accommodating as well, as long as the agreements are bilateral. Okay, as long as the agreements are bilateral, na data sharing or data ownership are ensured, and I believe na we have for the museum we have entered those kinds of agreements na very clear, very explicitly stated na the agreement should be bilateral.
Okay, thank you, our speakers. So we're all for sharing our data, but on certain conditions and limitations, right? We have a question from Hazel Scott, and I think this is for Michelle. So I will read her question. Since the digitized collections are under Creative Commons license CC BY SA 4.0, is anyone free to build analysis tools that use the MNH digital data? Examples of reports from analysis tools for herbarium data would be the names of all species deposited by a certain collector. Second, the number of all vouchers of a particular species that contains flowers, deduction of phenological patterns, and many other potential insights. So can anyone do this, or is some permit required?
Thank you, Hazel, for your question. I think naka-stipulate naman po yun sa Creative Commons license, CC BY-SA 4. Kasi iba't ibang, I think iba't iba pa yan eh. So dito sa na-mention ni Miss Hazel, allowed naman po siya. Yun nga lang, kung ang publicize lang po na data sa amin ay hindi included ito, syempre hindi niya po yun magagawa. Kasi, for example, ang sa atin, ang naka-publish lang ay scientific name, date collected, locality, but yung iba na gusto niya, I think siya na yung mag-work dito. But yes, that's allowed po.
Thank you. I think Ms. Scott is also interested for collaborating with you. So she sent me an email last night, and I told her to get in touch with you for any potential collaboration that she might want to build with MNH through the botanical herbarium. Okay.
Can I add then, although it's not
sure.
about
Sure.
botany. So the example I presented kanina, the data from our new series collection ng Chiroptera was already used for a metadata analysis that was published sa Communications Biology. So very clear doon na although there's another work that was derived from our collection holdings, hindi tayo kasama dun sa author line. It's perfectly fine. But the attribution of where that data came from, so it was very clear in the cited literature na naandun yung pangalan sinong nag-digitize, like si JJ, Acos, Dexter, si Florante, and the name UPLB Museum of Natural History was explicitly stated in the citation. So that alone, I mean, the attribution of the source data is very, very clear that it came from us. So I think, and it has been done in other, yung mga big data analysis, so yung mga search engine nila, they would look for GBIF information. So explicitly state there that where the data source came from. And in this case, na-cite nila ang Museum of Natural History.
Dagdagan ko lang din yun kay Sir Phillip. So ang problema kasi, pag ginamit yung data, hindi natin kayang ma-filter or mahabol kung sino yung nagamit, kung sino yung mahabol lang natin pag na-cite, tsaka nakapublish. Pero pag halimbawa ginamit ng student para mag-present sa kanyang thesis or mag-present sa ganitong funding agency, yun yung hindi natin kayang habulin. Pero yung mga published naman, kaya po.
Okay, thank you. And in connection with that, Dr. Ireneo Lichner has a comment. So he said, I agree with what Michelle and Philip said, especially that there is a risk that intellectual property of the MNH might be used for personal benefits by others through improper data mining or meta-analysis. And we can always share always, but we are obliged to do so because we are obliged to do so, but we need to safeguard as well. So yes, that is true. Okay, and okay, so I have a question for Dex. So you showed earlier photos of damaged birds in the Rabor collection. So what do you think should be done to maintain integrity of these precious specimens?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Um, right now, what we're doing, or what when I started dealing with the rubber collection, is to constantly monitor the humidity and temperature of the room morning and afternoon. Now we can't be certain during the weekends because there's no work, there's no people coming in the collection rooms, and as we what we saw, there's a constant humidity level from 8 to 5, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But right now, when there are typhoons, when there's rain, we have a risk of high humidity levels. For example, uh, the past week we had a typhoon that came. What we saw in our readings is that it maxed out to around 75% humidity. So that's at a critical level because with museums, with collection rooms, what we need, our standard should be at around 40% to 60%, the very least. And unfortunately, um, we can't be certain with how we handle specimens during the weekends or whenever there's no one around. So I hope in the future uh, we would have a an area or a separate collection room for every section that we can constantly monitor even on the weekends. Um, right now, what we're doing or what we're basically as stopgap methods is that we clean them. We try to uh, look after them by cleaning their trays, cleaning the cabinets, basically mitigating any pests, any site of molds, and yeah, I just hope that in the future we would have collection rooms that are really designated for our specimens in order for us to preserve these heritage collections. Not just for animals, but for our insect collections, for our herbaria. So yeah.
Additional question lang, Dex. How frequent do you think should an inventory be made? Would you recommend doing an annual inventory?
I think once we finish an inventory of a collection section, for example, here in the report collection, it's taken me a long time because as I've said, we've looked, we're dealing with one specimen at a time, or basically we're looking after the tags, we're looking after the data, and tingin ko po, an annual inventory should be done, pero it should be done by specific people per collection section, not just one person, not just yung ginagawa po ngayon ni na Ma'am Mitch, sila meron silang they're doing their own inventory, they're doing their own digitization project, and yeah, I think once a year or an annual inventory is enough for our collection because meron din tayong mga i-repatriate, meron din tayong mga dumadating na bagong specimens. So, ayun po.
Okay, thank you, Dex. So, I think the next question I have is for Sir Philip. So a lot of people, also museums and our sections at UPLB MNH are doing digitization. So how is your GBIF project similar or different from a database?
Similar or different? Right. I think Simon Michelle has mentioned this a while ago that the early forms of database, from the Excel, from the ledger, those are great. I mean, all the big museums have those. Still, of course, still maintain that practice of a ledger handwritten, the field notes, the catalog sheets. So yeah, so those are database. But of course, the GBIF initiative is almost similar, but of course, depende dun sa the data that are reflected dun sa GBIF. For us, it's all occurrence data. So yeah, locality, data collection, collector, some taxonomic information hierarchy. But of course, iba pa rin siya if you look closely dun sa database talaga that is owned by the museum, and of course by being actually into the museum as well. So it's more of complete pag database talaga. It's more of a complete data, mga attributes na naandun. So like ecology, habitats that where it was collected. So yung mga ganun. But nonetheless, for the GBIF, despite the medyo parang abbreviated amount of info that are reflected, of course, it's still very, very, it has a wide utility, definitely, as shown with, for meta-analysis, information, or what have you.
Mute po kayo.
Jen, Ma'am Jen,
So we have a question for Michelle again from Hyra Jill Tolentino. She would like to ask about the specific equipment used for the digitization process. Kung ito ba dito lang sa Pilipinas na purchase yung equipment na ginamit mo. And ayun, thank you and congrats on your talk.
Opo. Meron po na dito pwedeng mabili, meron namang hindi. Ano po yung pwedeng mabili dito? Kasi ang setup namin, kung makikita niyo yung video na pin-repair last time, ay camera siya. So na nasa stand and then photo booth. So yung camera, available po siya dito, sa ating local supplier. So depende na po kung anong unit yung camerang gusto nyong gamitin. And then yung photo booth, sa Lazada lang po namin yung nabili. Pero from China pa. China kuno. O basta sa Lazada lang po namin siya binili. Courtesy of Kuya Flor. So siya po kasi yung taga namin ng spec. And then yung color chart, yung iba kasi nagpiprint na lang talaga sila ng color chart and then scale bar. So si Ma'am Amy, siya po yung una munang nagpahiram sa amin ng color chart. Tas ngayon po, yung color chart na yun, nagpalit na sila ng pangalan ng company. So out of stock siya for a while. Tas ngayon naka-order na po ulit kami. So yun naman sa ibang bansa namin siya pinili. So may Shopee, may Amazon at may local suppliers.
Thank you, Michelle. Mabenta ka because we have another question for you again. And the question is from Justin Gabriel Badlis. So his question is, you mentioned earlier that the downside of using a spreadsheet for the database. You mentioned earlier the downside of using a spreadsheet for database. So, teka lang nawala ako. As far as he knows, for Google Sheets, the sharing of the link or database could be restricted to viewer only. so that no one may be able to edit or delete information into the sheets. And as for the backup and restoration, the sheets also offers the viewing of history of edits done. He would like to ask if how this spreadsheet is shared. Is it online or saved in a device for
Mm.
database purposes, and as well as if there had been any instances of corruption of information, as these
Mm.
corruptions may only occur if the file is not in a cloud server like that of Google Drive.
Mm.
So
So
that's
thank
the
you,
lengthy
Justin, for your question. So far, wala pa namang pong data corruption na nangyayari. So for the data sharing, sa Botanical Herbarium po namin kasi ginagawa yon. So kung meron po kaming, for example, interns or student assistant na kailangan mag-access dun sa Excel sheet po na yon, sinishare po namin yun sa Google Drive. So parehas po kaming editor. So owner ako, and at the same time, ako din, editor din po yung pinag-sharean ko ng Excel sheet.
queue. And we have a question from Chabelita Avigil. Perhaps Sir Philip can answer this. So knowing that the data of our collections are out in the public, how can we ensure that our online databases are safe from possible cyber attacks like hacking? Are there any measures to prevent this?
Uh, well, unfortunately, I think Sir Floor would be best in the best position
I
to
agree.
answer
I
this
agree with
with
Sir
that
Philip.
kind of technical.
Kuya
But
Flor,
but in the event that
okay.
there is a hacking, that's the importance of yung may mga database ka na in paper, ledger, or Excel. So may redundancy eh. So mawala man dun sa database o sa website yung mga information na doon, we still have the basic information. I mean, the specimen itself. So nandun pa rin yung information on the field notes. So it's best now, and we are practicing that in the UPLB MNH, yung that level of redundancy from the digital to the hard copy, the hard print.
Kuya Flor?
Siguro dagdag na lang, no? Related to the first question na tungkol doon sa Google Sheets, no? So basically yung ginagawa ng herbarium is controlled databasing at their level, which means yung editorial, yung data cleaning, data verification is done at their level at kokonti lang ang nakakita, which are actually the staff of the herbarium. And when we publish it, that is yun na yung final form ng data, no? And related do sa question ni Miss Abikil, we only choose yung mga data publishers that have a good track record, no, na wala siyang masyadong hacking, no, and always online, di ba? So doon related din doon yung sinabi ni Ma'am Michelle kanina na when you choose data publishers, dapat there are free, meron tayong free, kaya kukunti lang ang features, and also ang possibility doon ay hindi siya masyadong data secure. So, nasa sa inyo yun, sa mga herbarium managers at saka sa mga iba pang mga collections managers to look at services na, alam nyo medyo secure siya. You have to look at, of course, the price, the cost, and other features. No? So, babalikan ko din yung sinabi ni Sir Philip na ang pinaka feel safe nyo doon later on ay yung actual specimens nyo, di ba? So make sure that yung inyong printed records ay hindi mawawala. Make sure that yung inyong mga raw data ay always accessible, no? And of course, make sure na may connection, hindi disjunct yung inyong raw data do sa published data. For GBIF, I would assume na maganda ang kanilang databasing, no? And it's a global biodiversity information facility, and it's funded by a lot of NGOs and I think government organizations as well. And wala naman kasing, to tell you frankly, wala naman kasi ding mag-iisip na mag-hack ng data ng herbarium specimens. I think hindi siya ganun ka, ano ba tawag dito? Hindi siya ganun ka ka-attractive,
ipapala,
no? Hindi
oo.
tulad ng information that deals with people, no? So I think uh, let me just say na relatively hindi tayo masyadong natatakot pagdating diyan siguro. Of course, marami pa ring issues when you publish data that involves uh, yung direct locations, no? With geolocators na ultimong pinapakita yung very specific site. That's why related to sa sinabi ni Sir June, we do not publish geo-references na kumbaga kung pwede natin ilagay yung geo-references natin ay hanggang to the barangay level lang but not to the exact geolocation. So I think yun lang yung siguro masasabi ko related to sa questions na yun. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kuya Flor, for piping in
Uh,
sa question
uh,
and answer.
Dagdagan ko rin yung kay Flora, I think
Sure,
yung
sure.
dun sa mga geo-reference information, lalo na yung sa mga highly traded ng mga animals like butterflies, moths, beetles. In our case, sa paniki, wala naman siguro mag-interest na mag-ano ng paniki, kasakit pa sila or something like that. But yeah, for highly traded animals, like for insects, well, plants definitely. So yeah, dapat medyo i-safeguard yung mga very limited information that can be divulged dun sa mga global databases.
Yes. Thank you. And Sir June is raising his hand. Yes, Sir June.
Gusto ko lang ibigay ng ilang specific example. It's not just yung hacking or yung katulad ng na-site ni Phillip na yung sa geotags na referring there. There are some very crude, what should I say, very crude forms of data mining. For example, if Phillip publishes all the checklists of bats in the Philippines, and let's say I'm from another institution and I publish, okay, the bats of this locality, and I can have a checklist. So in effect, dinamit ko yung ginawa ni Phillip para gumawa ako ng sarili kong paper, and that doesn't look good, that doesn't feel good, and it compromises the intellectual efforts of the MNH. Plus, of course, Phillip in the case of my example. So yun din ang sinasabi natin, it might not be hacking or but it is intellectual theft. Something that we should safeguard. And that's why I was about to ask Flor, pwede bang may levels of filtering na, let's say, kung very general na alam mong may kumbaga pwede ba tayong mag-blacklist ng mga alam natin na may tendency na magnakaw ng intellectual property, let's say, something like those in the future. Thank you.
Actually, sir, pwede siya. Depende sa complexity na ng magiging databases mo. So far, dahil tayo we're just, hindi pa nga actually relational databases ang ginagamit natin, especially doon sa herbarium, sa Kahoop, doon pa lang doon sa pinag-decidean ng Kahoop na ipapublish na data, yun na yung, let's say, napag-usapan na nila na safe na data na pwedeng ilabas. So wala nang ibang data na nilalabas. Meron kasi mga databases na lahat ng makikita nyo na kinokollect na data ay pinapublish niya pero hindi lang pinapakita. Hindi lang pinapakita sa general audiences. Like what you've said, sir, meron po tayong sinasabing levels or access levels. So I think that's one thing to look forward to in the future, no? Especially when we replan kung ano yung mga ilalabas natin mga data.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sir June and Sir Flor, for that. Yes,
Can I
Sir Phillip.
And well, mga dangers ng mga intellectual theft, as Dr. Letwood said earlier. So sometimes may mga gumagawa talaga mga unscrupulous na elements of people that we do that. It's very shameless that we do that. And minsan the best way na to avoid this is to whatever that you collected, or the collection-based research is to publish right away your results. So medyo mahirap, of course, but if you can have a relatively quick turnaround from data collection from the field and then publication, I think maybe it would minimize yung mga shameless intellectual theft.
Okay, thank you. So that was a great discussion for everyone, quite engaging. And thank you, Dex, Sir Philip, and Michelle, for graciously answering the questions and making our webinar um, successful and engaging.